Welcome to the SImple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables, and whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a cafe latte, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Money. Yes, money. After today's podcast, I'm going to hopefully get you to the point where if you don't already love the handling of your own money, you're going to, or at least you're going to have the steps or tools to get to that place. Because rather than dreading dealing with your money every month or looking at those bank statements, it really can be an engaging process, a process where you begin to celebrate your life and you become more engaged with your money and master it, so therefore you can then use that energy to propel you forward towards your dreams. For some reason, though, one of the first things that pops into my mind when I think of money is the classic teenage angst film from the 80s, maybe the early 90s movie, Can't Buy Me Love. Maybe I'm dating myself here, but you no doubt know who Patrick Dempsey is. Yes, McDreamy from Grey's Anatomy. Well, in Can't Buy Me Love, he stars as a very young and still very adorable teenager who believes absolutely that if he would just have the right jacket, have enough money, he could impress that most beautiful girl in his mind and be able to take her to the dance. Or be his date. Anyway, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I used to watch it quite a bit when I was in high school. And that song by the Beatles is absolutely stuck in my head, Can't Buy Me Love. And the lesson behind the film, and the reason I bring this up, is that simply being flush with your money, having a flush bank account, and living a lavish lifestyle doesn't guarantee you will be happy or that you will get that one person that you adore. In his case, the girl next door, the beautiful blonde, had all the clothes and all the money in the world. And if only, anyway, the lesson basically comes down to money can't buy you love, thus the song title. But at the core of the message, they are absolutely correct, the makers of the film. But let's move away from the setting of the movie, which was high school, and talk about money in the context of our everyday lives. In order to thrive in any environment, we must first come to understand how money functions in our life, and more importantly, in the world we are living in. What fuels it? What keeps the axle oiled and everything moving in an efficient cadence? If you look at the basics of money, what it is simply a source of energy that assesses the value of whatever it is you are wanting to buy. And upon transferring that money or spending it to buy this pair of clothes or pay for that house, that car, that rent, that monthly rent payment, you are transferring that power, that money to another individual, and they are gaining more energy. So basically, you want enough energy, money in this conversation, to not only survive, but thrive. And I'm going to talk to you today about 6 simple steps you can follow to get to that point of thriving, because it's very possible. And as long as we can gather those steps, we can figure out how to, no matter how much money we make it work for us. Okay. Although you may think that more money equates with more energy or a happier life or a more fulfilling life, there is actually, studies have been done that actually say, well, yes, a certain amount of money equates to happiness or more happiness, but after a certain level, interestingly enough, it's not necessarily about how much you make, but what you do with it, how you master it. And so again, we'll talk about that. The book that came out a few years ago called Happy Money, and I'll put a link to it in the blog in the show notes, actually found in their study that the topping off point of where money and happiness continue to rise together is $75,000 a year. After someone make $75,000 a year. Now, this was granted across the United States, so it's going to waver or shift a little bit based on the cost of living in that area. But on average, it was $75,000. And based on, after that point, how you spend your money, how you invest it or don't invest it, whether or not you use money to bring more responsibilities into your life, that will determine more so your happiness than just simply gaining more money into your bank account. So I found that very interesting. All right. So in today's podcast, I'm going to talk about one of the crucial pieces, the foundation I feel in living or building a simply luxurious life. Or in other words, this life that is your most fulfilling. And that is how to master your money. Because once you become the master of your money, much like you becoming the master of your mind, you are dictating the terms on how your life will move forward. Granted, you can't control everything, but the more you take control of the things you can control, the more successful you will be in your journey. All right, so there are 6 steps. In my upcoming book that's going to be released here in January 2015, and also on the blog, and I'll give you those links to different posts that I've written in the past, I dive into each of these 6 steps in detail with very specific examples. Today, I'm going to introduce each step so you can check and see how you're doing, pat yourself on the back for the discipline that you've adhered to so far, and see where you can improve to increase the money that you're making, increase its ability to work for you. Because that's what it's ultimately there for. It's there to work for you. All right. First step to mastering your money. Understand where you are spending it. Where is your money going once you've earned it? I mean, you worked hard for it. I think when we put money into those terms, once we understand that $3 cup of coffee, that $100 pair of shoes is how much of your time spent to get that. Based on your hourly wage, based on your income, how much of your time are you shifting, giving to someone or something in order to get whatever it is you desire? And is it worth it? And that's really the only person who can make that decision is you. All right. So what I would like you to do in step 1 is that make a list, go through your online bank account statements, or if you get paper statements, go through those item by item, line by line. And then organize by category. Necessity spending, such as utilities, okay, mortgage or rent, car expenses, things like that. Put those in your necessity category. And then make a list of your discretionary spending as well. Now, some discretionary income, I mean, we need to relax every once in a while. But how much and where are you spending your money that's called discretionary? Just be aware of it. At this point, we're just going to be aware. We're not going to be, getting angry at ourselves for spending. We just want to know where it's going, because ultimately you're trying to make an income so you can enjoy your life, and everyone's going to enjoy it in a little bit different ways. All right. So key categories, making 2, necessities and discretionary. And then once you get that point, especially with the discretionary, try to go through and organize according to type of category: eating out, entertainment, books, travel, anything that you don't need to survive each month, but is really enjoyable that you like to do. Okay, so get those categories, make sure. And if your budget is something that you share with someone else, your partner, your spouse, even a roommate per se, any budget where that money is being spent on you somehow, whether it's the rent, the food, make sure that both parties are aware of where that money is going. Sit down, make a date with each other, have a conversation about it. Because the more knowledge you have about where your money's going, the more successful you're going to be. Okay, second step is to set up a budget, a monthly budget, itemized monthly budget. Whether you just create a paper and pencil and calculator budget each month, or create an Excel spreadsheet, or use the various apps that are available out there. Mint.com has one, I know, and there's a handful of others out there. Again, I'll include a handful of these in my show notes. Keep your budget simple as necessary. Once you master that simple budget, then you can get creative and make it more advanced to suit your needs. But when you're just getting started, try to keep it as simple as possible. Now, if you go to the blog, The Simply Luxurious Life, and you go to my archives under money, I actually have a place where you can print out my simple budget. And it actually gives you steps on how to set up an Excel spreadsheet. So it's very simple. The math will be done for you once you set up this program. And it takes a lot of that time that's used calculating everything out. And it makes it so much more simple and time efficient. So that's on the blog under money in the archives. Just click on the PDF doc link and it'll print out for you. Or you can save it to where you need to save it. When you do this, you're going to put in obviously your income. You're going to put in what you hope you can afford, all of that in necessity, obviously, and then the discretionary spending. And then you're going to see the truth of what you actually can afford on your budget. Some of us may be cheering. That's the best. And it will happen for every one of us, whether it's happening today or down the road, it will happen. And some of us may be cringing a little bit, but that's okay. At least you're to the point where you're looking at what you make and you're being honest with yourself. The best way to improve, the only way really to improve, is to be honest with yourself about where you are right now so that you can then make the steps to improve. All right. Once you've done that and set up a simple budget for the month, make a date with yourself each month to sit down, block out an hour, 2 hours, whatever it's going to take. Sit down and really assess and be clear about where you are each month. Write out those checks, do your online bill pay, whatever it is you need to do. Do that every single month on the same day, or at least put it in your planner on each month so you know, block out, this is my date with myself and my money that I work so hard for, and I'm going to make sure I limit the stress as much as I possibly can. All right. What I like to do, there's some months where I'm so harried, but I know if I don't sit down on that 20th or 30th or 31st of the month, whenever your paychecks come in, I'm going to be more stressed as the month continues because I'm not going to know where I'm at financially. So I make a date with myself each month. It's in my calendar, in ink, in my planner, and I pour myself a cup of hot tea. I turn on some music. I'm usually by myself in the house. My dogs have already gone on their walk, and I get it done. And I honestly can't tell you how nice it feels to finish that budget, have made sure that the last budget is all up to date, so I know exactly where I am and how much I can spend. All the bills have been paid for the upcoming month, and I can see exactly how much money I have left in the bank account. Now, granted, I was just talking to someone recently. Yeah, the beginning of the month's not a lot of fun. 2/3 of my income's already spent in one day. And it's true. We're paying our mortgage. We're paying, if we have car payments, we're paying insurance. We're paying for those utilities. But guess what? We have the money to pay for them. And that should be something we can celebrate. Now, there are going to be some months where you have a lot of discretionary extra income to spend. And there's going to be other months where it's very small. Either way, celebrate the fact that you have that money to pay those bills, to live this life that you've created for yourself, and live accordingly. The rest of that month, after that day, should be far less stressful because you know where you're at, you know what you can say yes to, and you know what you can say no to. All right. At the end, the last tip, I'm going to talk about some monthly rituals that will also make spending and using your money a lot easier as the rest of the month unfolds. But for right now, just make sure you set up a monthly date with yourself to do the budget. Okay. Third step. Find ways to trim the budget. So now you know where your money's going. You know how much money you have. Make sure that you are honest with yourself about where you can cut some corners. Now, maybe you don't need to. Maybe you're fine. Maybe everything's in the black once you've paid all your bills and you have all your extra money. But what if you want to save a little bit more? Put another $100 or $50 into that retirement account. Okay. What if you want to do that? Where are you going to get that money? Well, let me give you some ideas. Again, I will include some links to blog posts that I've written of very detailed tweaks you can make, but I'm just going to give you a sampling here. A few things you can do. If you're a homeowner, turn down the hot water temperature. That fuels your showers, your laundry, things like that. That actually will decrease your water, your electricity bill or gas bill, however your water's heat, and noticeably. Maybe not significantly, but noticeably. Okay, that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is instead of washing your clothes with hot water, switch it to warm water. Never use hot water, use warm water. Again, you're using less energy, so you're going to pay less money on those utility bills. Credit card company. If you have a credit card and you're in good standing, I try to do this every year. Call them up, tell them just that. I've been a member of this credit card for such and such years. Can you work with me and try to get a lower rate? Now, most of the time I can get them to come down one, if not more. Now, in the last few years, rates all over have been hiked because of various legislation. But you can use your good spending habits to make an argument to decrease your APR. Especially if you're not even using that APR, meaning you pay off your bill each month, which you should. That's the goal. We'll talk about in the next step. And then it really won't matter. But just to have that security net is a great thing to do. Make sure you pay your bills online instead of paying for stamps. It's very simple. Most banking systems have it. And you don't have to do it automated. You can go in and set up, send it on the date you want each month, which is always a good idea. If you're trying to save a little bit more money this particular month, instead of buying books at Amazon or your local bookstore, go to the library. Check out the books there. And if the book isn't there that you want, ask the librarian, hey, is it coming in or can you order it? Because most likely they just need to know what their patrons want to read and they'll bring it into the library for you. You might have to wait a little bit, but it'll be worth it and it'll save you some money in the long run. Because after all, most of the books we read, we only read once and then we want to pass them on anyway. Another thing, cook at home. Unless you can't make the meal that you desire for yourself, make your meals at home, save money, and create amazing bonding experiences with those that you're eating with, or just time to relax at home. For me, I love cooking. I know not everyone does, but for me, I love cooking, and I find myself in the kitchen using that time to unwind after a busy day. I don't make complicated meals for the most part during the middle of the week, but I do find that cooking actually relaxes me and it saves me money. So those are just a few ways you can save yourself some money. Oh, I have a few more. I'm going to share just a few more. Consider all your different memberships that you're a part of. If you're part of a gym and you're using it religiously, great. Keep going. It's obviously something that's of value and that's bringing a significant return to your life. But if you're not, consider this. This is something that I did when I first bought my house about 9-10 years ago. My very first house. I was determined to own a house, but I could not afford a gym membership as well. And so what I did is I paid for one personal trainer visit or class one-on-one. And I just asked her, I said, I need you to give me very specific moves or strength training moves that I can do at home without a gym. And she did. She set me up with a very good program of strength activities that I can do without having all the fancy equipment in a gym. I now do all my strength activities at home, and I've saved myself at least $25 to $50 a month. And I tell you what, I don't miss it. But that's me, and that's my personality. So it depends on what you are willing to give on. That's where you need to prioritize. And again, only you can make those decisions. So really consider all the different subscriptions and memberships that you're a part of. Do you read all those magazines and newspapers that come in? Maybe there's certain times of the year that you don't. Maybe there's certain times of the year that you do. Hey, I love The Newsroom. Here's a perfect example. And I know that The Newsroom is, the last season of The Newsroom on HBO is this fall, 2014. Well, don't tell HBO this, but I just turn on my HBO subscription when The Newsroom is on, and then I turn it off. It saves me a lot of money throughout the rest of the year, but I also get to enjoy that show when it's on. Granted, I could probably wait and then watch it later on Amazon because Amazon makes it available, but it comes a lot later. And I like to enjoy it and talk about it with readers and friends when it's on. So those are just a few things to reconsider to save you some money and build that retirement account or that savings account so you can travel to Paris or London or Italy. But before I get carried away and hop on a plane in my dreams, let's take a quick intermission before we get to the final 3 steps. I'll see you on the other side in 1 minute. All right, welcome back. Moving on to the fourth step. That is to tackle and conquer your credit card debt, or simply just conquer your credit card. Now, I am an advocate of having a credit card. I don't think we should absolutely get rid of credit cards unless we don't think we can handle or trust ourselves with them. But I do think that, well, let's just look at it this way. Credit cards aren't bad, but they easily become a monster in our closet that we don't want to look at or address if we misuse them. All right, we don't want to create those monsters in our lives, and that is a self-created monster, and they don't have to be. So long as we understand the power of the credit card, good and bad, then we can master it. And as we all know, it's not free money, but it sure is a nice little safety net in our pocket, and it can provide some fantastic benefits if we travel a lot. So the benefits, it can build our credit. So when we go in for different loans, for buying a house, buying a car, it shows that we can handle that credit. We are responsible. It also allows us to have a little bit of wiggle room to buy those big ticket items, so long as we can pay it all off at the end of each month. And as I said, a lot of people I know use their credit cards. They use it more so as a banking or a checking account, pay it off in full each month, and then they get all those frequent flyer benefits each month, especially if they travel. And that saves them money in the long run because their budget isn't forking out the full price for tickets. Again, on the blog and in the book, you will see all sorts of detailed information on how to get out of credit card debt, all sorts of specific tips based on personal experience, and also having read a lot of different money books from Susie Orman, from David Bach, from Gene Chatsky, and all of them say at the foundation of it all pretty much the same thing. They all have different little tricks and tips, and then again, I share my own as well. So I will make sure the links are up for that on the blog, on the show notes. I do not advocate, when it comes to credit cards, I don't advocate, like I said at the beginning, getting rid of all your credit cards. I don't feel it's absolutely necessary. If you don't trust yourself or you want to put it in the freezer and freeze it, that's fine. But just have one credit card, find the lowest rate possible. And if you do your digging around, you can find some really great rates. Right now, they're between 12 and 15 on average for just a basic credit card. Do not, and make sure you're not just looking at the introductory rate. Make sure you're looking at after the introductory rate, what it is. After that, they usually go up after 1 year or 6 months. And then if you are not someone who wants frequent flyer miles, then you'll actually will be paying less or not have an annual fee at all. And I actually advocate for that. Yes, I travel, but I try to keep it simple. And I put those, and I just look for a card that for 1 year I don't pay an annual fee, and I just pay hopefully nothing at the end of each month because I pay it off in full. So basically it's just a piece of plastic in my card, in my wallet. Okay. Again, a lot more detail I will have on the show notes on how to get out of a credit card debt, how to maintain and successfully have a credit card. The fifth step is to invest regularly in order to create a peace of mind. David Bach is, in his book, Smart Women Finish Rich, talks about the 3 baskets of savings: retirement, emergency, and your dream basket. And I'm going to talk about all 3 of those. I absolutely agree with them. Between 10 to 20% of your monthly income should go into these 3 baskets. And the biggest one would be your retirement. Each month, regardless of how much money you make, put at least 10 to 15% of your income, your net income, into a retirement savings account. And again, I go over very detailed places you can put your retirement money into in the book and on the blog. But 10 to 15%, and then put, based on, again, it's going to be based on your values and your goals and whatnot. Then you want to put between 2 and 3% into your emergency fund. And this is money that you can access within a day or 2. You don't want it to be readily accessible within a minute. If you go onto your phone, your app, and you can easily transfer it. This is for those emergencies. Maybe, the car broke down, you have to fix something in your car, or maybe a suit needed to be repaired for a big interview tomorrow. Whatever it is, those little things you just don't plan for. Or maybe it's the dog, a vet bill that you didn't expect, something where you can readily access. It won't won't ruin the budget for the month. And then you'll just keep building that up each month. Add as much as you can that fits in between that 2 to 3%. Again, it could be 5% depending on how much you want. Susie Orman says to have 8 months savings in your emergency fund. Other financial advisors and most other financial advisors say 2 to 3 months. I personally have never gotten to 8 months. That's a lot. It's a dream, but I think it is possible. But definitely don't be discouraged if you're not at 8. Shoot for 2 to 3 months savings in your emergency fund. Then the other basket, the fun basket, is your dream basket. And this is for saving up for the house, for that trip, for those. Maybe you want to take a cooking class in Paris with Patricia Wells. Whatever it is that you don't have to do, but you want to do. And you're going to do it in the short term. You're going to do it within the next year to 10 years. You want to put this in a money market account or something that has some interest accruing and that you can't access again very quickly. And you automatically will be saving. Again, this would be between 2 to 3, potentially 5% of your income, depending on how much you want to put in there each month. But if you have these 3 savings baskets slowly building each month, sometimes you'll just forget about them. I find myself often forgetting about them, and I just automatically do it each month. And then after 6 months, I'm like, whoa, I am ready to go for a trip. I didn't realize I was that close. That's a really good feeling. So something to think about. Make sure you are investing each month because it really does build that peace of mind. All right. Step number 6 is to create monthly money rituals. Now, you may be thinking, okay, rituals and money, that's an oxymoron. I mean, things that are enjoyable, that can't possibly be true, but it can be. And the first thing that I said in step 2 is to create that monthly budget. Make it a time that you enjoy. And the easiest way to do that, once you get yourself set up, is to respect those limits. You are the parent, you are the protector of your sanity in this particular case. You can spend frivolously or you can be self-disciplined. And ultimately, whether or not you're excited to sit down or not excited to sit down, a lot of it is determined by how you have handled yourself that month. Granted, some things happen during the month that you can't plan for and you can't expect, but a lot of the times we can. So try to make that monthly sit-down money date with yourself as wonderful as possible. I the first few times that I sat down and I was able to see my bank account be in the black after all the bills are paid and even the fun income was available was one of the best feelings in the world. I actually looked forward to sitting down and seeing that. Now, not every month is like that, but those months that are, man, it's exciting. So make that money date with yourself each month. Use cash as much as possible. In fact, that's one thing you can do when you sit down and budget your money each month is to reserve a certain amount of money. Just take it out in cash that first day of the month, divvy it up into certain categories. Maybe it's grocery, gas, entertainment, and put each of those sections of money or categories of money into their own envelope. And that's your allowance per se. Granted, you're an adult, but we still need to give ourselves allowances. And then when we see that cash being handed over, it's more real. It's not just a card sliding through a slot, putting in your PIN number, and well, we get what we want. Seeing the cash exchange hands really is not a wet blanket. I don't want to say that, but it's just a reality check. It's a reality check. So give yourself an allowance and parcel that out each month. Slow yourself down. Another idea is to create 1 week out of each month where you don't spend anything at all. That requires a lot of planning prior to, but it is possible. That would mean obviously going grocery shopping, planning a very strategic grocery shopping list. And then also planning your social events, pulling out that money, maybe buying the tickets earlier, whatever it is. But it's amazing. If you only spend money 3 weeks and a 4-week month, think about the money and needless or the thoughtless money we spend without thinking about it. And that's 1 month where nothing goes out the window. That means you're really being conscious of your spending. It's something to try if you're really trying to save money and be aware of where your money goes. Also, another thing to think about for money rituals is if you are about to spend money on a big purchase item, wait 24 hours. Sleep on it. Doesn't mean you're not going to buy it tomorrow, but it allows you to really think about it and see if you want it. Because sometimes we get caught up in the emotion or the people that are with us and they're excited for us to get it too, and we don't do a money check. We don't do a gut check. How are we going to feel when we sleep on it? For me, money can either help me sleep really well at night or it can give me fits at night. And I know that if I wake up in the middle of the night or in the morning and it's not sitting well with me, I know that I should not be making that purchase. So sleep on something that's a big ticket item for 24 hours. Another thing to do is to use a check register. And I know this is really kind of old school. And in fact, every time I pull my check register out at the grocery store, a lot of clerks will say, oh, I haven't seen one of those in years. And it's more for me. It's a simplified way of me of keeping track of all my expenditures. So when I sit down and do my monthly budget, I can see and enter exactly what I've spent, where I spent it, when I spent it. So if I'm searching for a particular check or if I'm searching for anything, I can go through my list there, and that way I don't have to try to remember everything, because a lot of times certain checks don't clear until a month later. Whoever received it didn't cash it, but you still need to be aware that it is going to clear eventually. All right, and another thing that I would really encourage you to do is don't be afraid to haggle. Just because someone gives you a price on something you want to buy doesn't mean you have to pay it. Now, if they say, no, I'm not going to reduce the price by such and such amount, then that's fine. They can always say that, but it doesn't hurt to ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. In fact, recently I was working with a contractor or trying to find a contractor for some remodeling I wanted to do. And I knew exactly what the project was going to be, and so did he. And he immediately spit out a price, which I respect, and I wanted to honor his time, and I would definitely have paid him. But I said, well, how about this? And I cut the price basically in half. Kind of shocked myself, to be honest with you, but I was glad I did it, because he looked at me and he's like, you're right, it's a smaller project. And he basically met my offer. He came up a little bit, but I saved myself a pretty penny. And I'm so glad I respected myself enough to at least try. They can always say no, but you should at least try. Yard sales, if you're shopping at yard sales, things like that, anything is negotiable. Even clothing at a store. Doesn't often happen that they'll grant it, but it is possible. At least try it. At least try it. Consignment shops especially, I've gotten some great deals just by saying, well, if I noticed this in the collar, or hey, I'm buying 3 or 4 items here. What do you say you work with me on this price? It can happen. Just ask. Another thing, use coupons. There's online, there's coupon codes, promo codes. Search them out. They're there. And there's so many other websites out there that will help you find them nowadays. Okay, so that's the 6th and final step for mastering your money. Now, there are a lot of details, again, that I did not go over, and I will link to them on the show notes, and that will also be available in the book. And more information on the book is on the blog as well. But as you can see, finding a way to master your money, the goal is to create a peace of mind. The goal is to build this foundation so that you can begin to save for, build for, and create this life that maybe you initially thought was impossible, but it really isn't. It's very doable. It will require discipline. It will require patience, but it can happen. So all those details on the money that we talked about, all those 6 steps, all the details are on the blog and the show notes, and I will again link to each one of them with detailed posts as well. Thank you for stopping by for the 2nd podcast of the SImple Sophisticate. Now stay tuned for this week's Petite Pleasure. If you like chocolate, you're gonna love this one. All right, so this week's Petite Pleasure has to do with chocolate, and it is one of my favorite desserts or treats that I indulge in at least once a week. Okay, it's only once a week. Don't tell anybody about the 2nd cup that I had last week. But I have actually created my own recipe online. You can find it underneath my recipes, but I recently came across an even simpler recipe that I think is even more decadent and more delicious than anything I've ever had. And I can make it at home for cheaper than I can buy it. So simple. I found it on David Leibovitz's blog, davidleibovitz.com, who I absolutely adore. He has fantastic cookbooks. Anyway, if you know David Leibovitz, you know what I'm talking about. I will link to his blog and I will link to all of his cookbooks. So he shares this hot chocolate recipe online. And I'll tell you how I've made it and what I've done to make it exactly how I'd like it. All right, so first you want to start off with 2 cups of whole milk. Not skim, not 2%, whole milk. Trust me on this one. Pour those 2 cups into a saucepan. Warm it up, medium heat. While you're doing this, or at the same time, put in 5 ounces of bittersweet chocolate. Now, and it's bittersweet dark chocolate. And you want the best quality hot chocolate you can find. Do not skimp on this. Make sure whatever chocolate you get, it at least has 70% of cacao. Now, I recently found this chocolate, or this bittersweet dark chocolate bar, at a local grocery shop. It's from San Francisco, and I'll put a link to it on the blog. But you can basically make 2 of these recipes from this block of chocolate. Costs about $12, but again, that's $6 for each recipe. You're making 4 cups of hot chocolate for $6 plus the milk. That's it. I've saved money on what would typically cost for 1 cup, $5. Anyway, my math in my head. Anyway, it's saving me money. Okay? So definitely invest in really good chocolate. This is what makes the recipe. And then the whole milk, of course. Okay, so you've chopped up 5 ounces of bittersweet dark chocolate, and you put it into the saucepan of the 2 cups of milk. Just heat this up over medium heat or very low boil. All right. And if you want it thin, so make sure it melts and it's all becomes one luscious chocolate color. If you want it a little thicker, which I like mine a little thicker, bring it to a soft boil, not a high boil, but a soft boil. So if you have like 10 notches on your stovetop dial, go to about 6 or 7. And just keep stirring while you're doing this, but bring it to a soft boil for about 2 minutes. And you'll notice that it gets a little thicker. And each time you reheat it, because this is what I like to do. I like to go, after I've had my 1 cup that I make, and then I leave it in the saucepan, and I put it in the fridge. Put a lid on it and put it in the fridge. And then the next morning, I'll reheat it. And it gets a little thicker that time, but it's still, the flavor is absolutely amazing. Anyway, so you want it a little thicker. Bring it to a soft boil for about 2 minutes and then take it off. Taste it. All right, taste it. And what I think you'll notice, if you're used to powdered hot chocolate, then you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this isn't sweet enough. But what you'll notice is that there's that real chocolate, that flavor there, that 70% or more cacao. You're tasting actual chocolate, and you're going to get used to this, and you're going to realize that this is going to satiate your palate so much more. But you might want a touch of sugar. So what David Leibovitz suggests is adding up to 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Now, it's up to you. I do add about 1 to 2 tablespoons of dark brown sugar. Or light brown, it really doesn't matter. But again, do it to taste. Do it to taste. Stir that in while it's still warm. It can be off the burner at this point. Stir that in, pour. And since it is very rich, I pour it into small espresso teacups. They're adorable. And they really are all you need because it's a sipping chocolate. And it's fantastic, again, for dessert, or for an unexpected end to an evening, or a sweet treat after a long day. So that is a simple recipe for chocolate shad. Stay tuned next week. Who knows? A recipe, a book, a film? You just never know. Petite pleasures, something that's a simple luxury for the everyday. That wraps up this week's podcast of the SImple Sophisticate. If you have a few minutes and you've enjoyed what you've heard, take a moment to rate this podcast on iTunes. Thank you for tuning in to the SImple Sophisticate podcast. For more ideas and inspiration, stop by the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com. Until next Monday, bonjour!